Hey everybody, this is Dan with Pain Free You. I have the pleasure today of introducing Emily Larson from South Dakota. And Emily volunteered to do a success story with us, to share her journey and her story with you. So, Emily, thank you. Welcome. And
Thanks for having me.
introduce yourself and kind of take us on a little bit of a journey and tell us a story.
Yeah, so I am Emily. Before I jump into my story, I just want to say that it really feels amazing to be sitting here doing a success story because just a few months ago, I was really in the thick of it and watching your stories every day or your videos every day and your success stories. And yeah, it just feels great to be where I'm at now. So I just want to say thank you for all of your content because it really helped me throughout my journey. And I know it helps so many people. But yeah, thank you.
That's great.
My
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. My story started in 2020. It started with toe swelling and pain in my toes. It was like excruciating pain. Even just a blanket touching my toes was super painful.
Okay.
Couldn't wear socks or shoes. Yeah. Went from doctor to doctor for about a year and was taking steroids throughout that entire time because it was the only thing that really kept the swelling and pain at bay. Every time I would stop the steroids, the swelling and pain would come right back within like a day's time. So I was going from doctor to doctor, and I eventually made it to a rheumatologist, and they diagnosed me with seronegative peripheral spondyloarthritis. Say that three times.
Whatever the heck that means.
Yeah.
And I've heard of a
So,
lot of diagnoses, and I think that's a new one for me. So,
yeah, it's a very long one. But the seronegative part of it means that my labs don't show anything is wrong with me, but they are just diagnosing me because based off of my symptoms. So I said, okay, whatever.
it's an opinion.
Right, exactly. And so they started me on a couple different medications, and those were injectable medications. So I was injecting myself with these really toxic medications, and nothing really improved. I did that for about 10 months, and I actually had additional symptoms after that. I had like neuropathy feeling within my legs and my feet. It was a severe burning sensation, just felt like my legs were on fire, and also the color changing in my feet just got like severe, like really really bad. It would just be pure purple, like no circulation at all down there. So I decided to go to Mayo Clinic in 2021 for another opinion, and as they do, they put me through all of these crazy tests and told me that I was misdiagnosed and that I did not have the seronegative peripheral spondyloarthritis and to stop those medications. So I did that. And they said that I had Raynaud's disease, which is something that I've known I've had my whole life. I've always had that. But the chilblains was what the toe swelling and pain was down in my toes. Another word for it is pernio, but it's basically just an extreme form of Raynaud's disease, and it's triggered by stress and the cold. And so they put me on a blood pressure medication, which dilates my blood vessels and makes it so blood flows easier down to my toes and my feet. So that helped for a little bit. And then in 2022 is when the chronic pain started and all of the injuries. I do quotations because most of them weren't injuries, they were TMS. But all of that started in 2022. And it really was all over my body from head to toe within 2 years time frame. From 2022 to 2024, I had cubital tunnel syndrome, golfer's elbow in both of my arms at the same time, TMJ disorder, burning mouth syndrome, plantar fasciitis, proximal hamstring tendinopathy, which was like a sit bone pain, sciatica, piriformis syndrome, hip pain, low back pain, headaches and migraines, and I was still having the chilblains or pernio flare-ups often as well too.
Right.
So all of that within a 2 year time frame.
Wow.
Yes, it was a lot.
So basically, you were a mess.
Yes. Yep. Yep, I was a mess. And then I was going from doctor to doctor, trying to figure out now why am I getting all of these injuries without doing anything to become injured?
Yeah.
Once one thing kind of calmed down, something else would pop up somewhere else in my body, which is a huge, a
A
key
huge,
point to
a huge
TMS.
L for TMS. Sure.
Right, exactly. And, I wasn't aware of TMS back then. So I was still searching externally for answers with doctors, and I went through multiple physical therapists. I was in physical therapy for probably like 2.5 to 3 years straight, nonstop. And I eventually went to a physio in Australia. He just over telehealth, but he specialized in the injury I thought I had at that time. So I'm like, well, none of these physical therapists locally can help me. So I'm going to go to somebody who specializes in this injury. So I went to him and I started working with him, and I probably worked with him for about 6 months total. And the longer I worked with him, the more symptoms I had. So by the end of it, I had 5 different pain areas at the same time. And he had some knowledge with the psychological side of pain. And he is the one who introduced me to TMS. And he told me to read a book on TMS. So that book was Think Away Your Pain by Dr. David Schechter. So I read that book and I was like, yep, that is what is wrong with me. That's what I've been dealing with the past 4.5 years.
Right. Question.
Yeah.
Once you learned about TMS, were you able to connect the dots to a particularly stressful or chaotic time of your life back in 2020?
Yes, there are many things going on. It's
One
like
one being
looking
co one being the onset of COVID.
right, right.
Right.
COVID hit the US, and it was actually the same exact month that COVID hit the US too. So it was that. But also prior to my symptoms, I worked at an elementary school and I worked with kids who had behavioral disorders. And it was basically my job to repress my emotions. Like, no matter how chaotic things got in the classroom, the classroom was destroyed on the daily. There were physical fights between the kids. The kids would physically hit me or say like verbally assaulting things to me. And I did that every day for 3 years. And we always had to appear calm. And we never, it was scary sometimes, but we just had to sit there and just
Take it.
make it look like we didn't care. And like, it wasn't a big deal or anything, but a lot of it really was. And so throughout that, I think is where I learned to repress my emotions. And we could only say like certain words to the kids too, couldn't go outside of certain verbiage to them. So that's where it started. And then after that, I moved into HR for my career. And I worked next to a coworker who was just super obsessed with why I didn't have any children. And back at that time, I think I was like 24 years old. And she was a few years younger than me, I think maybe 21, 2021. But every day she sat next to me and just would be like, don't you wish you had kids? Don't like, you can't say that to people a lot. There's people out there that want kids and they can't have them. That's just inappropriate to say to people. But of course, I was quiet and I kept it all in, and I sat there and I held my breath every day and it was tense, and I didn't say anything about it or say anything to her because I didn't want to get in trouble. So like the people pleasing part of things was happening in that situation. And then I was also planning a wedding at that same time. My dad was diagnosed with cancer and going through treatment for that. And yeah, he's doing great now. And I
Awesome. I was going
finished.
to ask, but I didn't want to ask. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, no, he's great.
awesome.
And I was finishing my second college degree too. So all of that put together at the same time, like, of course, yes, of course it happened.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yep, it does.
All right. So you read Think Away Your Pain, and obviously that's just the first introduction to it. So
Mhm.
let me know where you went from there. Um, did you start employing certain practices? Did you do more research? Did you start really implementing any of the various TMS approaches that you might find if you start searching the internet? Really
Yeah,
kind of take me to like chapter two or the second half of the book, if you will.
yeah, I read a lot of books. Of course, I have that perfectionistic personality trait of wanting to know everything about what I'm doing. So it's really not necessary to read all the books, but I did. And I just wanted to know like as much as I could about TMS and just fully understand it. I knew that I had it. So for me, it wasn't really the doubt piece that was holding me back because once I read about it, it just clicked and I was like, there's no way this is anything but TMS. And like the past diagnoses I had, they just never resonated with me and I never took them seriously after that first misdiagnosis. I had like multiple other misdiagnoses like MCAS, um, thyroid disease, psoriatic arthritis. And each time a doctor would give me a diagnosis, I just kind of be like, whatever, and brush it off because it just didn't align. My labs were fine. My symptoms didn't align with those disorders. So I knew it was TMS because I 100% aligned with it.
Right.
I did a lot of research on it. I started watching your videos, and I think the first thing I started with was journaling. And I started with a list of like all the different traumas and stressors that I had gone through throughout my entire life. And each day I would pick a topic and write about it and just write about it once and
Mhm.
then move on to the next one the next day. And then I found that after I had journaled about all of those different topics, I was journaling about like how proud I am of myself and like positive things.
That's
So
good.
that's when my mindset started to change from like the victim mentality to like, I can do this, I'm proud of myself. So that is when my mindset started to change. And then I really dove into like the brain talk side of things. And I was at first talking to my brain all day because I was redirecting the negative thoughts that would pop in, like, oh my God, is there something wrong with my sit bone? Like it's hurting again. And I would just have to constantly redirect those thoughts and be like, nope, this is TMS. There's nothing structurally wrong with me. Like injuries heal. This is not an injury. You've had this pain for 2 years. This is, like injuries heal. It's not going to hurt for that long. This is TMS. So really redirecting my thoughts was a big thing. Talking to my brain, like in the mornings, I would wake up and I'd be like, "Good morning, brain. We're gonna have a good day today. We're not gonna have any pain. If we do have pain, I know you're just trying to trick me. Like this, the pain doesn't mean anything. It's just TMS."
Right.
And then during the day, I would talk to my brain, and then at night, if it was a good day, I'd be like, "Good job today, brain. We did it together. We had a great day. We're gonna have another great day tomorrow." And just
Oh,
really, yeah, changed my mindset from just really negative, worst case scenario thinking to positive thinking.
that's fantastic. I like the good morning brain and then good night brain. Great job. The one thing I'll tell you is you made a comment about, I know my brain, you're just trying to trick me. TMS isn't a trick. It's an over, it's an overprotection. In other
Hmm.
words, I couch TMS as the brain perceives danger and the symptoms are a warning signal.
Yeah.
So multiple symptoms and switching from one to another symptom imperative. I don't think it's the brain trying to trick us. There are some people who believe that, but I don't think our brain is working against us in any nefarious or negative way. I think it's just so hypervigilant, and a hypervigilant brain will continue to find things that it perceives as dangerous all over the place.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, and um, but it's wonderful. So, when did you start noticing that this? Well, first of all, I love that you went from I journaled about things once because I talk to people who say I'm journaling for like 6 months and I keep writing about the same old crap again over and over and over again. I
Hmm.
love that you kind of exhausted the let me get the old stuff out, but now let me start journaling about positive things.
Yep.
And I think that's I'm not a huge journaler. I tried it, didn't work for me, so I don't teach it. I don't discourage it, but I just say it's probably not required to get better. But if
Hmm.
you enjoy it and you
Yeah.
like it, feel free.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, but I love that you switched to the positive, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, just from the standpoint of how did that seem to lift your mood, your spirits, your confidence in I'm on the right track? Like, was that a significant part, or was it the self-talk, or was it just the level of clarity and your certainty got deeper and deeper, or was it all that stuff?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely the certainty, not having any doubt about it, and just the self-talk. Like not only was I talking to my brain, but I was talking to myself. I've always been very hard on myself and criticizing. So if I would mess something up, I'd just be like, God, you're an idiot. But no, I redirect those thoughts and I'm like, no, everybody makes mistakes. It like nobody is perfect. You cannot be perfect. So redirecting those thoughts as well too. And I once I started getting relief from my pain, I just like fell more and more into that mindset and just like it was a lot of proof that, this is TMS. And I just never really looked back after I started having some improvement as well.
Okay, so the audience always wants to know about timelines. So from the time that you first heard about TMS, read that first book, till the time that you started to notice some improvements, was there a timeline that you experienced?
Yeah, I wasn't tracking things. That was something I really struggled with in the past was I would track everything, like every doctor appointment every day. I would write about how miserable I am. That's something that I dropped when I started doing this work is I didn't track each day or really anything at all. So
Roughly.
yeah, so I want to say it was probably like 2 weeks I started seeing some changes, some improvements with the pain. And I would say about maybe three-ish weeks, 4 of my 5 symptoms were gone.
Wow.
And then, yeah, the last symptom was the symptom I had the most fear around. It was the symptom I had for like 1.5 to 2 years, which was the Sitbone pain.
Mhm.
That was the last symptom to go. And that was probably around 2 months where that went away.
Okay. So what I'm going to encourage the viewers to realize is because there's a lot of people who've been aware of TMS for a long time, many years, and they're going to hear weeks to 2 months and go, what am I doing wrong? Oh my,
Hmm.
maybe I don't have TMS. My interpretation of that is that they have not yet gotten the level of certainty that perhaps you did, and
Yep.
they have not been consistent enough in the self-talk, in the directing your brain to what you want. Because so many people are so consumed by the symptoms, which is where you were for years.
Hmm.
Um, but the reason you had a quick resolution is due to your certainty that, yep, this is absolutely it. And you didn't wallow in the, oh no, what if this doesn't work? And I don't know, maybe I'm really sick. Maybe the doctor's missed something, right? The doubt will absolutely delay or even prevent recovery. And I think it's your consistency with the self-talk and even the journaling, positive stuff
Yep.
is really what made a difference. The fact that you stopped being so self-judgmental and critical, because some people are still very judgmental and they don't realize that the brain perceives that as an attack, even though it's our own thoughts and words that are doing that.
You're right. Yeah.
So I just really wanted to comment on the speed of recovery, but the speed of recovery came from the speed of deciding firmly this is it.
Yep.
There's a decision you had to make.
Hmm.
It's not like all of a sudden you just had this, everything's wonderful. No, you had to go, nothing else makes sense. This makes sense. You decided that this was it and you didn't look back.
Right.
A
Exactly.
lot of people, they keep on looking back. Well, this
Hmm.
isn't working, so maybe it's not TMS. Maybe it's not this perception of danger. Um, so tell me, like this, so what is it called? Reynauds. That's the discoloration, all that. Like all those things have resolved?
They have at this point, yes. I was
Love it.
before the TMS work, yeah, I was probably having a flare up once a month.
Okay.
And since starting the TMS work, I haven't had any. So I,
Did you ever get diagnosed with CRPS? Because that often has swelling and discoloration. Was that
yeah,
one
it was
of
a
the
it was
main?
a diagnosis that was thrown around a little bit. They never firmly diagnosed me with it, just said it was a possibility, kind of just like at Mayo Clinic when I was there. They said, well, you might have small fiber neuropathy, but your tests are negative, so we can't diagnose you with that. So, there
Well,
was
a
just
lot of
talk of it.
opinions. Yeah, a lot of opinions.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's the thing, like, you got this toe diagnosis simply based on pain and swelling because there was no test that showed anything.
Mhm.
So it's like the
Yep.
word idiopathic. It's
Yep.
like for unknown reasons, we're going to give you this label. And
Yep.
so what you've proven is that a lot of these diagnoses were nothing more than a symptom match. Hey, our textbook
Right.
says these are the symptoms you have them, so you must have this thing. When in fact, it sounds like your labs and everything never really showed any type of disease process,
No, no, they didn't.
which is awesome. So this is beautiful. I love it because we have so many symptoms, quick resolution, and evidence that the level of clarity and certainty and confidence and self-talk and a focus on the positive, and I'm not going to beat myself up anymore. Now, let me ask you this. Some people are going to wonder, did you get out of that HR job or did you still work alongside this person?
No, I also left that job, which was kind of in the middle of all the symptoms starting as well. So I forgot to add that into my list of things
Okay,
going
but
on.
you didn't get better from leaving the job.
No, no.
You still had plenty of symptoms after leaving the job.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, because some people will extrapolate that, well, I need to eliminate all my stress, and I don't
No.
believe it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I
No.
agree with you.
Okay, so sounds like things are pretty wonderful these days.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, I might get like a twinge of pain from time to time, but I know what it is, and I just automatically go to nope, that's TMS, not worried about it. One thing I really, throughout my recovery, I had a lot of different fears that I had gained over the past 4.5 years. I actually wrote out a list of all of them. There was about 30 of them. And I conquered each fear individually and like really slowly. So, like, the biggest fear I had was sitting.
Hmm.
I was
Tell me
terrified of
about that.
sitting.
Because sitting pain's a big deal in this world.
Yes.
So tell me about that. How did you
Yeah.
conquer that?
So I had been sitting on a seat cushion for a year, little worth of symptoms go, bring everywhere. I was
All
saying
right,
I wouldn't
I'm
sit.
I'm going to pause. You got a little bit choppy. I don't know if the connection wasn't good. Can you back it up about 10, 15 seconds and just say, I was sitting on a seat cushion
Yep.
and go from there again, please?
Yep. I was sitting on a seat cushion and it had these little holes in it. So that's where your sit bones would sit. So it's not putting direct pressure on the sit bones. I took that everywhere with me. I always used it. And I was just really scared of sitting and probably would only sit like, well, at first I just avoided sitting altogether and then would kind of sit maybe like 20 minutes at the most at a time. And, I would stand all day at work with my standing desk. And that kind of led to the plantar fasciitis type stuff, but it was actually TMS as well. But thinking, well, I was standing all the time. So that's what caused, but that. But anyways, I started with just, realizing the fear of sitting. I kind of created a schedule to overcome the sitting fears. So on the first day, I would sit without a cushion for 5 minutes. The next day, I would sit for 10 minutes. The day after that, 15. And I just kept going and going every day. In the beginning, I would kind of do something to distract my mind a little bit, like would play Uno with my husband or just, something to distract me so I'm not sitting there because I was like super hyper vigilant back then, just always assessing how my sit bone was feeling when I was sitting.
Right.
And yeah, eventually, I just dropped the fear. I stopped thinking about it and I just, I sit without thinking about it. I don't like look at my sit bone and say, how's it feeling? Should I get up? Should I move around? It doesn't matter because it was TMS. There was nothing structurally wrong with me. And yeah, it's great to be able to sit again.
So as you were like training yourself to be able to sit, was there any amount of self-talk that you applied before you'd sit, while sitting, after you sat? Because I know you said you just engaged your brain in something else, like playing a game, Uno, with your husband,
Yeah.
which I think is wonderful. You use the word distract, but I think it's more engaged because you're doing something else fun, productive, interesting, as
Yep.
opposed to la 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 la. I'm not trying to think about that.
Right, right.
That's the
Yeah.
net. That's the effect. It did distract you from that, but I don't think we do that by trying to just like stare at a brick wall and distract. Like, let me not think about it because I think distraction just confirms I'm afraid of that. Whereas
Right,
if
right.
you were
Yeah.
engaging in that game, so I like to distinguish between distract and engage. Engaging is
Yeah,
much more
that's a good point.
compelling. But that's awesome. So you basically did gradual graded exposure to
Yep.
sitting. And so now you don't have to carry around that embarrassing cushion anymore,
Yes. Yep.
which is awesome. So for anybody with sitting pain, this graded exposure works. And the other thing is you didn't do it in a situation where you had to sit for 8 hours. Like, for example, people are like, but I have to sit for work 8 hours a day. I can't do graded exposure. No, you did it at home. You can practice at home when you can actually, if it gets too much, you can get up. You can, right? So I
Yep.
like that. I like that you did that. So it seems like you listed out all your fears and then you overcame them, kind of knocking them off one by one.
Yep.
Lots of times people will list their fears as these are my triggers. And then it becomes a I need to avoid these things list, which is
hmm
all right, if I never do these 30 things, I won't have pain. But that just compounds the fear
Yep.
and really shrinks your world because you can't do anything because when we're in the thick of it, we're afraid of most things.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I
Exactly.
love the fact that intuitively, I don't know if you heard it somewhere, but intuitively, you listed out your fears and says, these are the things I need to tackle.
Yep.
And by one, you started knocking them off the list. And so that's brilliant. I think it's awesome. It
Yeah.
really, I mean,
And
it,
I started, oh, go ahead.
no, that's fine. What were you going to say?
I did visualization a lot too before I would do whatever fear I was focusing on. So if it was the sitting, I would close my eyes, picture myself sitting without any pain during or after, and would talk to myself in my brain saying that this isn't going to cause any damage. Sitting is a benign activity, it cannot harm me. If I do feel sensations, it's just TMS, it's nothing to be concerned about. And then I would like go do the actual activity. And if I would feel sensations, I wouldn't like get up right away and panic. I would sit there and be like, it's okay. It's just TMS. There's nothing wrong. I'm going to continue to sit because there's nothing wrong with me. So yeah,
Yeah.
throughout all the different fears, I used visualization too.
Yeah, that falls in line with a lot of the things I teach. I talk a lot about there's two things we can control, what we expect and how we respond. And you just described that perfectly. You visualized a good result, and then if the symptoms would come up, you responded with clarity, certainty, calm, right? Because
Mhm.
if you responded with, "Oh no, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Ouch. Oh, I can't believe it." You would have likely experienced more intense pain in the moment, and it likely would have stuck around a while. And then it would
Yep.
have caused more doubt, like I knew I shouldn't be doing that. Where's my damn cushion? Right?
Yep.
So, your implementation of the expect the best visualization, and for the people who are saying, well, I'm not good at visualizing, my answer is yes, you are. You're perfect at visualizing. You're just visualizing a bad outcome. You're visualizing what you don't want.
Yep.
Change the script. And, Emily, you're doing that beautifully because you're saying, well, this is what I want. So I'm going to imagine that. And if you don't like the word visualization, do, make believe or
hmm
imagine,
Yeah.
mental rehearsal, whatever you want to call it. If you don't like the word visualization because it sounds too self-help like, then make believe that you're
Yeah.
in your head, make believe you can sit comfortably with a
Yep.
smile for a long period of time. And I like that you just started out with little chunks of time and increased it gradually. It's not like you sat down and said, I'm going to do this for 4 hours today. No, it's baby steps.
Yep. Yep.
Um, because at that point you were teaching your brain that it could trust you and your conscious thinking intentional part. Because the
Yes.
brain, when it's firing up all these signals, it's in the I've got to protect you mode. And it's almost like I don't trust you to protect, so I have to send these warning signals to make sure you don't do X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
So you basically retaught yourself that those things were cool.
Hmm.
Um, what else do you want to talk about? I mean, you overcame a lot of stuff. Um, I know I've got one particular person. You mentioned BMS, burning mouth.
Yes. Yep.
I've got one guy who's very consumed by that. So share with me the, I guess, that experience. And was that just one of those things where you were like, this is all just TMS, I don't have to worry about it? Or was there some intentional things you had to do? And was there any alteration of your taste included in that, or was it just pain? Not that pain is minimal, but was it pain specifically, or were the taste buds affected? Because I know that I've got one particular guy who's just so consumed by it. So any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I will say BMS was probably one of my most like mind-consuming symptoms because you can avoid sitting, but you can't avoid your mouth. It's constant. So when I first had it, I wasn't aware of TMS yet. It was a couple years ago. I probably had it for 6 months straight. It didn't go away. Eventually it did, just because it popped up somewhere else in my body.
Okay.
But I didn't use the TMS techniques to eliminate that pain at that time. So, like thinking back, it was just a burning sensation on the left side of my tongue. The taste, sometimes I would kind of taste like a metallic like
Yep.
taste.
That's what he talks about.
And yeah, and dry mouth too. So I was constantly like sucking on lodges or cough drops and stuff like that just to get some saliva in my mouth. But, I went away for maybe a year and a half. And then once I discovered TMS, it came back. And I'm like, okay, so that was TMS because it's here again. And I didn't injure myself. So I used the TMS techniques the second time it came and it was gone within 3 days. So that was just
Clarity,
another proof.
clarity, certainty.
Yep. Another proof for me that it was TMS. And really, when I first started all of this TMS work, I had a day where all of my symptoms that I ever had flared up all at once. And I'm like, okay, so this is like, that was just more proof.
Wow.
You
That must
just
have been a
keep,
fun day.
yeah. I mean, it really didn't stick around for long because I immediately was like, okay, so that's
More
even more
proof.
proof. And I'm just going to really dive into the work. That was pretty early on in the TMS work when that happened. But yeah, it's just like more and more proof come the longer that you work with it.
Right. Yeah, the one thing I'll just comment on the dry mouth. There's people with dry mouth, dry eyes.
Yeah.
The dry mouth in particular, 100% TMS. And the reason I say that is because when we are in the fight or flight stress response, two systems are suppressed, the immune system and digestive system. Where does digestion start? The mouth, saliva production. So if we're in that fight or flight, saliva production isn't there. And so we get dry mouth. And then, if you're experiencing pain and dry mouth, you're like, well, it's because I've got dry mouth and it's because of this and that. And did you ever experience anything with like reflux or digestive issues?
Yeah, no reflux really, no digestive issues really either. No.
Well, that's actually good because this gentleman is convinced it's like silent reflux. And it's like, well, you
Okay.
don't even know you have reflux. You've been told it is, but like, so you actually had burning mouth and dry mouth without reflux. So
Right, right.
just looking for ways of reassuring anybody with these symptoms, but particularly this one guy, because he's reflux. It might be the food. It's this, it's that.
Mhm. Yep.
No, it is TMS. It is perceived
Yep.
danger. And your certainty is why when it came back, it was gone again in 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If he keeps thinking it's the food or whatever else physical, it's not going to go away. You really have to believe it's TMS.
I agree with that completely. Yeah, I mean, this is awesome. You've been through a heck of a lot. Um, but I love that you just kind of grabbed onto this and says, "Holy crap, this is what's going on." I mean, people have said, "Oh, I saw myself on every page."
Yep. That was
And
me.
so I love that. You're you're very lucky that you found out about it so early because many people have been dealing with these syndromes and symptoms for years or decades before they come on to TMS.
Hmm.
Um, so I love the fact that you found out about it, not early because you still had multiple years of, of challenges,
Right, right. Yeah.
but still reasonably young in your lifespan. And so I love that you were able to grab onto it. For anybody who's saying, yeah, there's a lot of younger success stories. What about us older people? You can get better too. You
Hmm.
know,
Yep. Age doesn't matter.
age is not relevant. This is a human experience. It is not an age specific experience.
Hmm.
And so, what else would you like to share? Anything else, or is that pretty well cover it?
Um, one thing I have
Tips or
noticed
tricks?
after, what was that?
Any other tips or tricks?
Yeah, one thing I've noticed after I've recovered from the chronic pain, the little spurts of pain that come from time to time, I'm able to typically pinpoint those pretty quickly of what's going on. And a lot of the time it's either myself being criticizing of myself or putting a lot of pressure on myself. So now it's kind of just like an alarm saying, okay, slow down. Like you don't need to do so much and you're doing just fine. So I'm able to correlate the pain and what's going on a lot easier than I did like in the beginning or
Mhm.
in the past when I didn't even consider my emotions at all. So yeah, it's looking at yourself, being self-aware. That's a huge part of the process too, just being really aware of your personality traits, how they affect you on the daily, and what could be holding you back with those.
Yeah, and where you're at now is, look, for anybody who says she's not a success story if she gets a couple of symptoms here and there, that's not true. You're an absolute success story because you've overcome the fear and you've also overcome the doubt. And doubt
Hmm.
creates a heck of a lot of fear. So you're able to see a symptom and go, I know what that is. It's this stuff. So let me check in. What's going on? Oh, yeah, I was just berating myself about something. That's not too cool. Or
Yeah.
I was just in this stressful situation. I have not had many episodes, but when I do, I know what it is. I call it out for what it is. Usually I'm able to connect the dots to something stressful going on in my life, um, emotionally chaotic, if you will.
Hmm.
And the amount of attention and fear I give to the symptom is virtually zero because it doesn't warrant it because I know what it is.
Yep.
And so when you get to that level of clarity and the lack of fear, this stuff is easy. New
Hmm.
symptoms, you're like, oh, okay. And sometimes it's a course correction, like, okay, be nicer to yourself, right? Stop beating
Yep.
yourself up. You're doing
Yep.
pretty good, right?
Yeah,
So
that's the case for me. Yep.
I love that. So unless you've got anything else, I think this was wonderful. You did a great job explaining your journey. Um, and it is really pretty impressive the number of symptoms that you had that were not 32 different things. It was one thing.
Yep.
It was
All
a brain,
TMS.
it was a brain perceiving danger, turning on the alarm systems. You got sucked into the medical system. You got
Hmm.
medicalized. You were told you're broken this way, that way. You've got this disease here. Take these injections, that medicine. Um, you had a list of diagnoses that could fill a whole page. Um, and the brilliance is that once you learned that there was something else going on, you grabbed onto it and you took all that medicalization, the medical fear, the belief that you're broken, and said, nope. And that's why you got better so quickly.
Hmm.
You grabbed onto that certainty. You made an absolute decision. So for anybody out there who's still straddling the fence and worried that maybe the doctors are missing something, make the decision. Because when you do, and you get that level of certainty, and then you follow the recommendations of the self-talk, the focus on the positive, don't buy into the fear, let's overcome the fear with graded exposure. Like all the things you did are perfect and exactly what's recommended, not just by me, but by many of the TMS mind body coaches. So I'm proud of you. You kicked
Thank you.
butt. You
I'm
kicked
proud of
butt.
myself.
You kicked butt. And I hope that your story inspires people. And for anybody who's looking at the short timeline, months to get completely better. Um, please don't get frustrated by that. Get inspired by that, but don't just say, okay, if she did it, I can do it too. Let's look at what she did and why it worked, because the clarity and the decision that this is all that's going on, I would assume that massively lowered your fear levels.
Oh yeah.
You weren't panicked every time you felt the sensation, even while you were still in it. And so
Yep.
lowering the fear, the certainty, and then starting to teach your brain with the consistent messages that, nope, I'm okay. It's not that. It's not the chair. Sitting isn't dangerous. It's benign. I'm okay. Um, so it was clarity, decision to accept that, and it was the consistency of applying this stuff. And that's why you got better quickly. So for people who are like, well, it's going to take me years because I've had symptoms for years, that's not true.
Hmm.
It's really not. We can get better when we get that level of certainty and knock down the fear. So I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Be proud of yourself. Your
Yep.
story is going to inspire a lot of people. We'll probably have it up by the weekend. It'll go up on YouTube and Facebook. Feel free to jump in and, comment if you'd like. Um, and by the way, I know you mentioned that you're going to make a resource or two available. Is that something you want to share now, or do you want to message me and send me that and I'll include it in the description? It's up to you.
You could include my Instagram handle in the description, and then from there, I'll be posting once the program is available. I'll be posting that all over my Instagram page. So if people want to follow me, they certainly can.
Sure. And what is that?
It is at pain explained underscore TMS.
Got it. Yeah, I'll find it and I'll get the full link and I'll share that in the description.
Okay.
Emily, I appreciate you. This has been great. Um, I love seeing people implement, and that's exactly what you did. And you got quick results, and now you're going to be able to respond to anything that happens with clarity, certainty, confidence, optimism. So, love it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I wish everybody luck who is listening to this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every success story is just more and more evidence that this stuff works.
Yep.
It's accessible, it's doable, and the things we've talked about are really what makes it possible. The clarity, the decision, the consistent messages that I'm okay. So, folks, everybody out there, decide, implement, get that clarity, and implement, and then implement, and then implement, and stick with it because it'll work for you too. So, once again, Emily, I appreciate you. Thank you. And if you ever need anything, you let me know.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.